Welcome again, it's Mr. Seibert here with another short lesson, and today I wanted to do El Alfabeto. A couple reasons I wanted to do this. One, there's many different approaches to do it. I've lived in many different countries where I've seen they start teaching a language with the alphabet. In the case of Spanish, we usually will introduce introductory phrases, and then somewhere in the very beginning, not very beginning, but then we do the alphabet later on. And in some, they do the alphabet as they go, depending on the language. For me, I will wait and do the alphabet after I've done some introductory phrases. But when I do get to the alphabet, it's something you have to do when you're teaching. One of the first things I do, and a lot of teachers that I've showed this to and have said, in terms of those that have teaching French or Spanish especially, have said, wow, you know, that's a really interesting idea. I didn't think of that. I start with the vowels, okay? And that's what I have up here. And the cool part is this, is in terms of a teacher and in terms of teaching a foreign language, get to the students and communicate with them that if they master the vowels in Spanish, they will be able to pronunciate any word. Okay, that usually will help build up some confidence, and that's my selling point to students. We master the vowels, you guys will be able to say any word in Spanish, okay? So without further ado, usually I start the lesson. The last video I did was a little bit longer, so I'm gonna shorten it with this one, but again, go through the vowels, a, e, o, u, focus on the E and the I. Usually those get confused, so e is the letter E, and then E is the letter I, so that they know the difference, okay? Go through it, make sure O is oo, they're different. And then focus that ooh, make sure they stick the lips out, like I said in the other video, like a boxer, ooh, okay? Focus that, go through each student in the class, make sure everybody has had a turn to speak at least once, then try to mix it up. Go rapid style. So instead of going in a pattern, pick one student here, that way it's random and it makes them, keeps them on their toes. Once they have mastered the vowels, now we're ready to go to the alphabet itself. And what I have here is created the alphabet here. I'll make it a little bit bigger and we'll move myself. Some of the things that I mentioned in my last video, the big things, I want to just go through the letters that are probably going to cause the most confusion. The way I have it set up, obviously I have the A with the letter and then the pronunciation. These letters here, che, again, I have it paired up with se. Some will have it at the end. I don't do that. And the reason is I want students to recognize the difference. So se, che, se, che. After you repeat that, have them repeat it so that they hear the difference. And then moving on. Another one, G. We say G in English, he. Make sure they hear that, he, so that they don't make that g sound like we do in English. H, ache, ache. Don't let them hear an H. If they use or start to say that pronunciation, give them the example, hola. Remember, we don't say hola, we say hola. That helps reinforce that letter right there, okay? Jota, again, je in English, in Spanish is an H sound. That's one that needs to be reinforced. The L, the eye, make sure you go through that again. Maybe 2 or 3 times say it, have the students repeat it, then maybe call on students individually. Eye, and then the L. So, and now moving on to the N and the Nye. This one you might need to do a couple times. They may have heard compañero, señorita, señor, okay? I always had my students address me as señor in the class. So they've heard it, now we can reinforce it. So Nye and Ne are the big ones. And finally, we have R and R. I think I almost mispronounced it there. So R, R. Erre. This one you might have to do a couple times, make sure they're rolling the tongue. Again, go through each letter of the alphabet, make them repeat it. Once you have repeated those exercises, now we're ready for some activities, okay? We've gone through the vowels, and as I mentioned in my previous video, we have these separate activities here. I start now with the grammar, okay? How do you spell? And the perfect thing to start with is your name. Okay, so we have the pregunta, the question, and the respuesta, the answer, es, okay? Have them write it, then have them speak it, then or I would first have them write it, then with a partner, somebody usually next to them, that's how I usually always structure my class, okay? Then they gotta do it out loud. But instead of doing their name. They know their name. So make it a little bit more challenging. If you feel that they're ready for that at that point, that's where you're going to throw in this question, which is, ¿Cómo deletreas el nombre de tu compañero de clase? They might be able to translate that as your classmate, but if they don't, now you're telling them, I want to know your classmate's name. Again, the answer is, okay, once you get to this point, I would say you're about a third to maybe halfway. If you're in a 50-minute period class, again, if you have a block period, you got a lot more time, a lot more flexibility. But if you don't need to rush it, but there are some good activities you want to try to get in so that you can do additional activities in the next period that are going to be much more beneficial to work on the other letters. Okay. So again, the first activity, what's your name? Okay. Have them speaking it with a partner, then out loud as a class. Then you as the teacher, check their partner or their classmate's name. Okay, if I feel they're even more challenging and they know their partner's name, okay, then what's his or her name? Pick somebody across the class, okay? Now they gotta look, and by this point, they should know who they are, and they shouldn't need to ask. But if they do, that is the perfect teaching point, okay? I've had students who didn't know how to spell each other's names, okay? That's when I can point to, okay, look right here. Ask them. How do you spell your name? It creates a perfect dialogue in class. The students can see it in action. Now they have to ask their name. Now they have to respond. Now they have to look at me and answer my question, which, what was their classmate's name? Okay. Excellent exercise to get started off with. Once you get done with that, then you want to spell other things. In a lot of teaching, especially in international teaching, you want to make things relevant, culturally relevant for them. It's not always about just what's in the American media or Western media, but what about their culture? So I've come up with some things that might interest them. If you have, depending on where you're teaching, topics that you want them to use just for spelling. I mean, remember, this is Spanish and basicos. You can use those here in this exercise. So how do you spell? We have it here, como deletreas tú, and then I have favorite actor, actress, etc. Same style for the practice here. They write the answer, they practice with a partner, then I will ask them one of the 5 options here. I will be the first to model it. Depending on the student, and this time I will not go with the student who's probably the strongest. I might go with the weakest, or I might go with a student who I feel needs a little extra practice. I write it as I hear it, okay? So I will say it, or I'm sorry, I will ask it, they will say it, I will write it. If I write it incorrectly, that is the perfect opportunity for them to self-correct, because they'll try to say to me, no, 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 and I'll say, no, 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 this is what I heard. So now they got to look back at their notes. They'll make that self-correction. Boom, there's the learning taking place. That's what we're looking for. So we've got these different options here with food, movie, things like that. I mean, there's different options. By this second activity assessment I have, it should take you by the end of 60 minutes. If you're lucky and you still have time, great. I would usually assign maybe more things that they have to spell, maybe family members' names, friends' names, other topics, just so that in the next class you can maximize, learning the alphabet and using those letters. Okay. Now for the more difficult activities. This one are the letters that we don't have in English. We have the R, che, eye, ñe. And the best activity I have, animals. In Spanish, there are tons of animals, just like we have in English, and the spellings help reinforce those letters, those 4 letters that we don't have in English, okay? So what you have here is that I've provided some examples that you can use, copy, paste them, use them if you want to use them, but it helps them distinguish. For example, burro, when they spell it, they should not be spelling it B-U-R-R-O, but they should be spelling it with that double R. If they make that mistake, that's that perfect opportunity to say, wait, okay? And just like you practiced up here, they might self-correct or their partner might correct them. Either way, learning is taking place. Animales, animales, animales is what I usually do to introduce it here. Now for ñe, because it's a little bit more difficult, well, we got spider, there's one. But reinforce it with words they've already heard. Señorita, señoras, compañero, señor, that one. they may need less time to practice with, but in any case, reinforce it just to make sure that we have learned and we've mastered it. Finally, I have here Libro de Alfabeto. There's various versions of it. But for the assessment that makes me confident that they've learned and mastered the alphabet, they provide a letter, they provide the pronunciation of that letter, they will provide a noun or a verb. Make sure you specify, okay? If it's a verb, you might get the what if, and I will tell them, if you cannot illustrate it or you cannot provide an image, it's not a good example. Usually that will get the point across because then they'll have to think. That way, instead of coming up to me for each letter, is this good? Is this acceptable? Is this not acceptable? But in any case, a noun or a verb, okay? With that word in Spanish. So you have the letter, you have the pronunciation of the letter, you have the noun or the verb, okay, in Spanish, and then an image of the word, okay? Those 4 areas there will help me at least believe that they have mastered the alphabet. And there's various ways to do this. You can use an illustrative approach, which might take longer for those that want to draw it. You know, I allow them to do that. If you're using a device, just be very careful, especially with alphabet. Translate can be a problem. In another video, I'm going to show various examples of how when you use translate, it doesn't translate always as you would like it. And that they need to see that because translate can become a problem. But if it's an activity or an assessment that you can do in class to show that they have mastered the alphabet, wonderful. Otherwise, you can use it as a review that they can take home. Either way, these are 4 excellent activities, assessments that I use. Hope you gathered enough from this. It's an easy way to teach the alphabet. It's the way I do it. It's the way it works for me. And I hope it works for you. So if you have any questions, leave me some feedback, send me an email, and take care.